I made $35,000 trading this one strategy, and I'm going to give you the full breakdown and show you the key to how I made this happen. So this trade, especially for a new trader, could have been gut-wrenching, but trusting the trend was such an important piece about this. Let me take you all the way back into June. Guys, this was a trade that I got into in June, got out of in September. This is the premise of a long-term trade. I did have a hiccup in the middle with earnings, didn't lose money on it, but I had to pay attention to the earnings date. So let's see what we did here. So this was all the way back on this candle going into June. We had a big down day. This was June 26th. Now, what led me to enter that on June 26th? If we just take a peek here, we had what we call a head and shoulders pattern. So you have this head here, and you have this shoulder and this shoulder over here. Now, why did I think that this was going to peak at this point? It's because if we just date it all the way back, look what happened here in April 2023. You kind of just got stuck there, and it was at that same level. Guys, when you zoom out and you start looking at different resistance points or support levels, you notice that they kind of always happen at that same point. So here was that peak that we were talking about. You had a peak in here. Now here, you kind of had this base. Yes, your stock price snuck through in the beginning of 2023, end of 22, but look where it kind of consolidated at. Same thing back here in 2022, same thing here in the beginning of 22, and then you go all the way back to 2021 and 2020. Look, you just kind of had this consolidation pattern in here. So yes, you can get above it. Yes, you go below it, but this is kind of the consistent theme. And that's why I said, okay, we're probably not going to go much higher than this, especially because the volume was down. Remember what the volume is. The volume drives everything. If the volume isn't there, you're not going to go and make these all-time highs. You're not going to creep up here or anywhere above that level. So I was looking at that saying, all right, let's just look for a couple of things now. We know that the stock price is going to bounce off this level. Then we're just going to wait until we get a buy pattern. We're going to wait for 3 days in the sweet spot, which we got. 3 days in the sweet spot coming down with an engulfing candlestick. We finally got into the stock. Now, this wasn't just smooth sailing from here. I initially said, all right, I would love to get this thing down. Let me clear this out. I would love to get this price down to about here, which was about just a shade over $100. And I wanted to get it down to this $100 level before earnings popped up. The earnings date was August 1st, so I had a little bit over a month to make that happen. And what did you notice from this? It didn't happen. I actually got into this thing, and at one point, I was down on the position. I was actually losing money because I got in somewhere around here. This just turned into a complete consolidation channel, and it was consistent with the consolidation channel that we saw in May, kind of those peaks that we were talking about, those consolidation areas. Nothing really happened. Now, when earnings comes around, a lot of you people are probably looking at this going, well, you had this big drop on earnings. Why didn't you just make a bunch of money in that? I actually had a lot of comments saying, you missed out on it. No, I didn't. A very, very consistent theme in the way that I trade is I do not trade earnings. When earnings come up, it's a total crapshoot. And as a matter of fact, let's click on this earnings right here. Guys, they beat on top and bottom line. They had a surprise earnings per share, and they had a big time surprise on revenue. They were expected to do 128.4 million in revenue. They did 241 million. Now, if I had told you that they beat on top and bottom line, what would you have said? You would have said that the stock price is up. You 100% would have said that. Well, they dropped 21% the morning of earnings, 8% the following day, and the day after that, 3.25%. So earnings are a total crapshoot. This could have easily ended up here, and I would have got burned on it. But needless to say, got in here around 127, exited around 120, somewhere in this area. It was actually this candle right here because this was the earnings reported in the morning, so I wanted to be out by night. This is where I exited, made some money on it, nothing that I was expecting to make. Now, after earnings is over, what happens? Volume goes crazy. And let's pull up the daily chart over here. We had our earnings report. Guys, look at this. Let's just look at this. Here's our volume, here's our volume, here's our volume. All of a sudden, earnings comes out, what happens? Spike in volume. Big time spike. And what do I always say? Let the volume calm down. Let it get back to normal. Let it get back to this level. It took a couple of days. Now, the re-entry point, when I exit something because of earnings, it doesn't mean that I'm just out of it. It means that I'm just going to let things calm down, reset themselves. So I got into it again, 87.49. Let's find that number, 87.49, somewhere in here. Got in on an engulfing candlestick 2 days after earnings, and now we were off to the races. Now, what was my plan from there? Well, I looked at this and said, okay, if we just zoom the chart back, I always love to zoom the chart back. The trend stayed the same. Very important. Trend stayed the same. And then I came in and said, all right, where are my resistance support levels? I was very consistent, even back in here. I said, I think that you can probably get down to this 67 level, 65, whatever this is down here. I think it was 68, actually, to be exact. I said, we can get down to this level. It's just going to take time. And what actually happened there? Well, you had some consolidation. You were going to get held up. Look, we got held up here. This line that I drew got held up right around there. It didn't look good for a while. It was actually down on my position again. But what was consistent about this? The trend was still there. You have to trust your trend. Even though this is what I always talk about. Price action is one thing. But if you're just looking at price action, if I was just looking at this, seeing this saying, okay, I entered here and now I'm starting to lose money up here. If I would have just said, damn, I'm losing, I would have exited the trade. Price action is price action. It doesn't mean anything. You have to pay attention to the trend. The trend was still down. The volume was still selling volume. You just had people taking profits, and that's the important thing about trading. Trust the trend. It's going to work out in your favor 9 times out of 10. And then what happened once it hit this peak? It actually created another head and shoulders pattern. Then, boom. Then luckily, even here, I got a big drop. I got a big gap down. Got down to that 67 level. Actually, the real number was 67.41. And because I hit this level, I have determined that the trade is over. Is it possible that it drops below this? Yes. I'll probably swing trade it if anything I get below that. The trend is still on the bottom. Could this go sideways and this continue to go down? Yes, it can. But just zooming out and looking at this, I just think that this trade is over. You hit that bottom right there and look at this. Going into 2020, you're just stuck there. The odds of you getting through this level, I think it's going to take an earnings situation. Something bad is going to have to come out in earnings where this thing gaps down to this price. But I think that we're going to hover around 65 to 67. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze to stay in this any longer, in my opinion. And that right there is how you make $35,000. You notice, what was the key thing here? Trusting the trend, not getting emotional, not just saying the price is going against me, it's over. No, you have to look at the trend, look at the volume, look at everything together and understand this is just a snapback. We need snapbacks to occur. We need these M formations to occur when we're shorting stocks. So some of you are probably wondering, where did you find this stock at? Moderna. This is a stock that nobody really talks about anymore. This is something that was big during 2020, 2021, but nobody really talks about Moderna anymore. I actually got it from the community members. This is a stock that I found and really started paying attention to from our community on our weekly live streams that we do. We do some private, we do some public here on YouTube, but it's from the Patreon community. The link is in the description below. Come and join us. It's $25 a month right now. It is a great way to screen for stocks. It's a great way to learn this process that I'm talking about. If you're new, you might be saying, I don't know what he's talking about with resistance. I don't know what he's talking about with trend or volume. Guys, come and learn this process. I'm not here to just throw money your way and say, you're going to make 100% this year. Well, you might make 100%, but it's probably not going to be this year because you need to learn how to use this process. This is something you're going to use for the rest of your life. And this specifically is a great way to trade long-term for those of you that can only take 5 to 10 minutes a day to be on a chart. There's a lot of people out there that say, chart trading, you need to sit on your computer 24/7, 365. No, you don't. For long-term trading, I would literally come back to this every morning or afternoon, and I would just pull it up on my phone, pull up the TradingView app, pull up whatever app you want, and say, all right, are we getting anything crazy that's happening right now? No? Okay, I'll check it tomorrow. I'll check it later in the day before the close. This literally takes 5 to 10 minutes of your time, depending on how many stocks you have, and that is the beauty of long-term trading. That is the beauty of being in the community, finding these stocks that I don't really have the time or want to go through 500 stocks per day. That's just not something I do. But if we have a community of a ton of people, everybody can go through some, everybody can throw it each other's way, and everybody can make a lot of money. So try it out. The link is in the description below. I just want to show one more thing here. Guys, the importance of this trend. This is really everything. I actually have a personal friend who we talked about engulfing candlesticks. We talked about this candle right here, and we talked about this candle right here. After he enters a stock, going short or long with those engulfing candlesticks, and he's on a long-term chart because the trend is really everything here, what he does is he takes the chart and he actually gets rid of the candles. And all he does is pay attention to this. After his entry point, after he figures out where to enter, all he does is pay attention to the trend. And that is something that you could absolutely do when you gain the confidence to be able to do it. And this started back in June. And honestly, it's still going on right now. Like I said, you could absolutely still be in this trade. You could absolutely let the trend continue to go sideways, because what happens when trends go sideways? Candles go down and you make more money to the short side. So the big takeaway that I want you to take from this is the emotion inside. You have to be able to stomach it. You have to be able to stomach those snapbacks against you. If you trust this trend, more often than not, it is going to work in your favor. Guys, the trend is your friend. Now, I tested 7 of the most popular trading strategies out there. If you want to see how this trading strategy compares to those, go watch this video right here. You will enjoy it. Have a great day.